Welcome to the Mindset Mutiny. I am your host, Mike Ivanov. Join me as we challenge the status quo, break free from self-imposed limits, and redefine what's possible. Welcome back, everybody. This is part 2, the grind and pressure of progression. If you haven't listened to the previous episode, do that now because it builds off one another. So last time, we talked about levels to this shit. How every stage of progress demands something from you. And you skipping those steps, it will keep you stuck. We broke down the brutal truth. If you haven't mastered level 1, you've got no business expecting to thrive at level 10. But now we're going to go a little deeper, because knowing that there's levels just isn't enough for some of us. You got to fight for them. And that fight, it's messy. It's painful. It's scary. It's the pressure that makes people fold. But you can't look at pressure as your enemy. It's your proving ground. For a long time, I used to run from the pressure. I used to hide from it. I'd live a life of comfortability, just avoiding everything that would stress me. But stress is a catalyst for growth. For thousands of years, stress has forced living organisms to evolve. That's how it happens. Survival of the fittest. Whoever can adapt to the stress and grow from it is the ones that will succeed. It's no different now. The only difference is people want to be comfortable, but then they're fucking miserable. The more uncomfortable I am, and I'm able to push through it, the happier I become. Because I'm proving that I can use stress, right, as a signal for growth. No stress, no growth. Live a life of comfort. Be ready for anxiety, depression, self-doubt, fear, all of these things to come creeping into your life. And we know what that does to you. There's a lot of people out there that are suffering. They have a lot of stress, but they don't identify what it is. They don't write it down. You write it down, you take the power from it. When you write it down, you can take steps to fix each one of the things that's stressing you out. I can remember there were times when I'd be super stressed and somebody would ask me, "What's wrong? What are you stressed about?" And I couldn't even communicate it. I didn't even really know. So then you make up some bullshit ideas of what you think is stressing you out. And the problem with that is your brain will help you there. It'll justify, it'll rationalize. So the things it says that are stressing it out aren't the actual things that are stressing it out. It's surface level shit that you want to think is the stressor. So for example, you could say, "Oh man, I'm so stressed. I'm just really busy at work." Okay. But like the real stressor is that you're not living the life that you want to live and you don't know how to do that. That's what it is for me. When I first started talking about stress, I'd come up with all these surface level things, oh, I'm stressed with money. I'm stressed with, work. I'm stressed with, I got so many things I got to get done. That's not it. That's not it at all. What was stressing me out was that I was insecure with who I was and I didn't know how to fix it. What was stressing me out was that I knew I needed to do things differently, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. That's the stuff that really fucking stresses you out. You know you need to go to the gym because you want to fix your health and you don't do it. There's the stress. Because you didn't do something you know you're supposed to do. You broke a promise to yourself. Every time you break a promise to yourself, that's the stress. But when you identify it that way, now you got more work to do. And that could create a level of stress for people too, and then they avoid it. I'm just talking about what's going on with me. And I hope it resonates with some of you. Stress is good. Stress unmanaged is bad. So a lot of people are walking around with unmanaged stress, and they put a different name to the stress, which then takes them off course to fixing it. Self-imposed stress has changed my fucking life, my physical being, my mindset, everything. So I used to think stress was bad. Now I know that it's good. Unmanaged is a problem. If you don't talk about it, write it down, look for a way forward to fix it, then you're going to be in trouble. But just again, remember, pressure isn't the enemy. It's the proving ground. Again, whether it's fitness, business, life itself, the ones who rise aren't the ones who wish for it, hope for it. Newsflash for all of you. Hope is not a fucking strategy. Hope will not get you there. Hope will not bring you everything that you want in your life. The grind, the pressure, the unknown, people that embrace that, that's what brings what you want. Getting comfortable in the chaos, refusing to tap out when things get hard, that's what matters. So in this episode, we're going to talk about what it really takes to level up, how to push past your breaking points, adapt under fire, and forge yourself into someone who can't be stopped, someone who you won't even recognize. That transformation will give you unlimited power. When I look back 5 years ago, I don't even recognize myself. Physically, spiritually, emotionally, energy-wise, I'm a completely different person. It's to the point where I think that age is just a number at this point. The older I get, I'm getting more energy. I'm understanding the world better. I came across somebody the other day that was like, hey, when you hit 40, wait for, the train to feel like it ran over you. I'm like, get the fuck away from me. Like, dude, don't bring that energy my way. I feel the best I've ever felt my entire life. 38 years old. It's not by accident. It's the diet. It's the sleep. It's the mental exercise. It's seeking the stress. It's building things, not running from my problems, running from my stressors, pretending like anxiety is running my life. I'm in charge. I've experienced all of that at the worst levels. All of it disappeared when I started doing the things that I knew I needed to do, not the things I wanted to do, the things I needed to do. There's a difference. And people always say, well, why do you do the things you don't want to do? It's very important. My answer to that is that I want to grow. I want to build something. I don't want to look back on my life and regret all the missed opportunities because I wanted to seek comfort instead. And there's so many things in your lives that you've been avoiding, that you want to do, but you make excuses for doing them. The day you do the things that you really want to do, you'll feel the feeling that I'm talking about. But we live in a world that celebrates speed, right? That's the biggest problem. Fast results, overnight success. But I'll tell you right now, real growth that lasts doesn't work like that. There are zero shortcuts to mastery. Progress is a process, and if you don't respect it, it will humble you. So I'll make an analogy. Think about video games for a second. And I fucking hate video games. I know some of you play them. You're wasting your life, your energy. I get that it helps you unwind and do things like that. But so does reading a book. So does going out for a walk or a run. So does working on a business you're trying to build. So does anything else, okay? Put the fucking video games away. But this analogy works, right? So with video games, you don't start at the hardest level, right? It's a new game. You don't know how to play it. You start at the tutorial, which is fucking boring, right? Nobody wants to just, learn how to move the character around or learn what buttons to press to do what, right? Just want to jump right the fuck in. And why is that? Why do you have to hit the tutorial? You got to learn the basics first. You got to be able to walk before you can run. But in life, people want to skip that tutorial and they want to go straight to the final boss, the ultimate test, literally the highest level of pressure without ever mastering what came before it. Sounds fucking silly, doesn't it? But we all do it in all different parts of our life. And then we wonder why we fail. How many times have you opened up a piece of furniture or anything that, requires directions to assemble, right? And you think, fuck it, I don't need the directions. I can figure this out myself. And then by the time you're done, you got leftover screws and the fucking table's all wobbly, right? We convince ourselves, for some reason, that we can skip the tutorial, skip the directions, the fundamentals, and somehow everything will just work out. Life doesn't work like that. The process isn't there to slow you down. It's there to prepare you. Each level exists for a reason. Level 1, you're building discipline. You're learning how to show up consistently, even when it's hard, even when you don't want to, even when you don't have the time. Well, don't even get me started on the time excuses. Number one that pisses me off. Everybody says, I don't have time. I'll do it if I had time. When I have time, listen, time is our greatest resource. So make it fucking count. If you go through your life, you go through your daily routine, you can find so much time that you've wasted. Pull out your fucking phone right now. Look at your screen time. 3, 4, 5, 8 hours. You don't have fucking time to go to the gym. You don't have time to read a book. You don't have time to spend time with your family. It's all bullshit. It's all stories you're telling yourself. I do that with people often when I suggest things and I get the time excuse. It's like, let me see your fucking phone. And then you show them like the 5 hours of screen time and the excuses just start fucking flying. I just wish that people would stop making the excuses and just start taking action. So, level 2, right? You're figuring out how to manage time, set priorities, stay focused. So by level 5, you're able to juggle multiple responsibilities: work, family, fitness, relationships, growth. And you learn to do it all without breaking. So when level 10 comes, you can lead others. You can manage stress, deal with the level of pressure that most people can't even imagine. And here's the catch. If you don't respect that process, you won't be ready for what's coming next. It's that simple. If you skip level 1, you're not going to have the discipline to handle level 5. If you avoid the hard work at level 2, you're not going to know how to manage your time when life gets busier. Then the excuses will start fucking coming. Every skipped step is a weakness that will come back to haunt you. I'll tell you something else. Life doesn't care about your excuses. And I'm sorry that hurts a little bit. It doesn't care why you're not ready. It'll test you anyway. And if you're not prepared, you will fold. So what's funny is when I started podcasting, I had no idea what I was doing. I remember I sat in front of the microphone, first episode, by myself, nobody around. I started blushing. I was already scared shitless to even press record. I hit record, boom, nothing comes out. That was a humbling experience. I've never felt anything like that. And I had a choice right there and then. Fuck it, I quit. Or shit, Mike, time to address some of the deficiencies. Time to look into why you're having a problem. I wasn't at level 10. I thought once I hit record that I'd automatically be at level 10. I wasn't. I was at level 1, a fish out of water, a beginner. Everybody thinks it's easy until they're sitting there and they got to answer the bell. Everybody thinks they have a plan until they get punched in the fucking face, right? I think Mike Tyson said that. But it's so true. I was sitting at level 1 thinking I should have been at level 10. I didn't know how to plan an episode. Why the fuck would I think I belong at level 10? I didn't know how to structure my thoughts. If you can't structure your thoughts, what makes you think you should be at level 10? I even struggled to speak with clarity and purpose. And you know what? Those first attempts were fucking horrible. But take my own advice. I didn't skip the steps. I studied. I practiced. I learned. I watched others that were very good at it. And I'm still climbing. I don't have any of it figured out. I'm just putting in the reps, believing in what I'm saying, trying to help people change their lives. That's what's going to help me build up to the next levels. Every little tweak helps you get there. But you don't get there without taking the small steps. I had a friend tell me that when I first started. You know, I'm trying to plan it all out. I'm like, I need this camera. I need this. I need that. He's like, dude, just start recording episodes. What's wrong with you? One little step at a time, one brick at a time, right? We talk about stacking bricks. Great. Every episode I record is another stacked brick. I'm going to have to do this shit for years before anybody gives a shit about what I'm saying, and I'm okay with that. I will continue to climb. The same thing happens in all the things I mentioned: fitness, relationships, leadership. You can't expect results you haven't earned. That's the quickest way to feeling anxiety and depression and all these things, expecting something for doing nothing. I'm sorry. It's just how it is. So for leadership, you can't expect to lead others if you haven't learned to lead yourself. Who the fuck is going to follow somebody that can't set the example, that can't hold the standard? You can't expect to manage your team if you can't manage your own time. Listen, it's okay, 100%, to start at level 1. It's okay to be a beginner. You have to get through that barrier. For 4 years, I was petrified to start jiu-jitsu because I didn't want to be a beginner. I'm not a beginner in anything else in my life aside from this podcast and jiu-jitsu. And every time I get into it, it scares the shit out of me. But it's so good for me. We're all confronted with things in our lives that scare us. Walk into it. You're not going to die. Get that through your head. Your body and your mind are going to make you think that death is around the corner when you go to be a beginner. That's exactly what I thought. Walking in to get on the mat, I'm like, oh man, like my heart was accelerating. I kept making excuses in my head. My stomach was bothering me. Like all of these things were happening. But I'm like, you know what? I just have to walk into this place. And then to make sure I come back, I go sign up for a year. And the best part about that is as I'm signing up, the lady's reading me like the disclaimer. And it's like, blah, blah, blah. You have to pay X amount of dollars if you quit, which was like a couple $1,000. And I'm like, awesome. And she's looking at me like I'm a complete psycho, right? She's like, I'm telling this guy he's got to pay all this money if he quits. And I say, awesome. The reason it's awesome is because I know that if I didn't just go and sign up for a year without thinking, I probably wouldn't still be doing it because it's scary. I'm still a beginner. I'm still getting my ass kicked. And I love every second of it because when you can embrace being a beginner, that's when life changes. Being a beginner is necessary. And it's okay. In the right environment, people want to help beginners. But you got to put yourself in that environment to be exposed to that. What's not okay is not putting yourself in that environment and avoiding it and skipping the process, expecting greatness to magically appear in your life. You don't deserve what you haven't worked for. I'll repeat it. You don't deserve what you haven't worked for. None of us do. Remember that. So I mentioned, right, my jiu-jitsu journey. So when I stepped onto that mat as a complete beginner, right, knowing zero, no martial arts, no hand-to-hand combat experience, nothing. No instinct, no technique, just a raw effort and a willingness to learn. So you're walking in there with people that have been doing it for quite a while. Okay? You're the fresh meat coming on in. That's scary shit. Somebody said, the hardest belt to get is your white belt. Well, you start off as a white belt. And what that means is just walking into that room, stepping on those mats is the hardest thing you will do. And I will tell you right now, and this may sound silly, walking in that first day was one of the scariest and hardest things I've ever had to do. And I've done a lot of scary and hard shit. But for some reason, there was this mental block that was just stopping me. It was fear. It was uncertainty. It was I didn't want to be the beginner. I didn't want to get my ass kicked because my ego wouldn't be able to handle it. I didn't want to be found out to be a fake, right? Because there's no faking it in jiu-jitsu. You either respect the process or you get humbled fast. At first, I got choked a lot. Still do. Last night, got my lights put out. And I loved every second of it. Last night, I was rolling with someone who's extremely experienced. Tied me up like a fucking pretzel. And the whole time I'm sitting there, this guy's just running over me. 50 pounds lighter than I am. That's what a beginner is. And I find that I just love it. Learning every single time I step on the mat. So for you, it doesn't have to be the mats, but everybody's got that jiu-jitsu, right? That thing. You all have something you're avoiding that you really want to do, but because you have to be a beginner at it, you don't want to do it. Jump right in, okay? Don't think. Just do it. Don't think about whether you have time in your schedule, whether you can afford it, whatever. Because if you do that stuff, you give your mind a chance to talk you out of it. So yeah, back to me getting choked, right? Happens. But I'm learning how to block those chokes. I've gotten slammed, I've struggled, I've got stuck, but then I kind of learn how to recover. I find myself in positions where I used to panic, where I used to think there was no way out, but I kept showing up. I kept drilling. And then instead of, just surviving, one day I'm thriving. One day I start converting those bad positions into offense. I started getting those submissions, catching a few arm bars, some chokes, smashing people and wearing them down. That's when I knew I might have been starting to lock in level 1. Don't get too focused on the jiu-jitsu. And I recommend everybody that wants to be able to defend themselves and wants to feel more confident, take it on. However, look at the jiu-jitsu as something in your life right now that you've been avoiding for years, that you've always wanted to do, but you've always made excuses as to why you can't do it. I promise you, you can do it. And once you do, all the fear disappears. And once you step into whatever it is, you're going to say, God, I don't understand why I was scared of this for so long. It's brought so much value to my life now. God, I wish I had just gone and done it 4 years ago. But the reality is, if I'd skipped those steps, if I'd tried to jump ahead before mastering the fundamentals, which I'm still so far away from, there's years and years and years and years more fundamentals to learn. But that's what makes it so great. If I hadn't learned those, I'd still be getting tapped out every single time. So if you're too focused on level 3, when you haven't mastered level 1, you're going to get put to sleep. Literally. That's the price of skipping the process. That's why I love jiu-jitsu. The feedback is instant. Every move you make has consequences. If you get it wrong, you pay for it. If you get submitted, there's no way around it. You got to go back, fight harder, refine your game, fix your ego. You got to prioritize your recovery. You got to get used to walking around like you got hit by a school bus, but you still have to show up to lift and run. That's what locking in the levels looks like. It builds that foundation so you don't crumble under the pressure. I can't stop lifting and running and do jiu-jitsu. No, I have to do all of them to keep that level locked in. Of course, you got to find that balance. You got to find the right combination, but it can be done. So the next time you're tempted to skip the tutorial, to ignore the directions, or to rush ahead, remind yourself of this. Every skipped step is a weakness waiting to be exposed. So respect the process, and you'll be ready when life tests you. Skip it, and you'll be humbled. Whether that's in business, fitness, on the mat, master the level, then move up. There's no other way. So lock that level in. What does that mean? I talk about it all the time. It means mastering it. It means getting so good at the basics that they become second nature, automatic, like breathing. You don't even have to think about them anymore. They're just part of who you are now. So let's go back to fitness. You don't start bench pressing 305 pounds on day 1. Of course, you would like to. You got to start with the bar, with maybe a little weight on it. You got to focus on your form, your grip, your breathing, your control. And you don't move the weight up until you've mastered those things. If you skip that step, what happens? You can get injured. You can plateau. Shit, you could quit. And why is that? Because the foundation wasn't strong enough to handle the extra weight. The same thing applies to every area of your life. If you try to lead that team, but you haven't mastered self-discipline, your team will fall apart. They will mirror your chaos. If you're trying to grow a business, but haven't learned to manage your time, your business will outpace your ability to control it. And it will collapse under its own weight. So here's the key. Locking in the level isn't about moving up. It's about maintaining everything you've built while you move forward. Think about it for a second. You can't forget the habits, the discipline, the lessons you learned at level 1. You can't let them slip. If you can't sustain what you built at the last level, then you're not allowed to move to the next one. This isn't negotiable. It's not an optional thing. Every new level builds on the one before it. If you try to move forward without maintaining what you've already built, everything will come crashing down. I've witnessed it. It's like 0 to 100. Walk before you run. All that stuff. So let's say, for an example, you've mastered getting up at 5 a.m. every day to hit the gym. That's your level 1. Now at level 2, you got to add meal prep. Maybe you're tracking your macros. Maybe you're lifting heavier. But here's the catch. You still have to wake up at 5 a.m. You don't abandon that foundation. And if you do, everything at level 2 falls apart. That's where locking it in is so powerful. It's not about proving you can handle what's on your plate today. It's about showing you can keep handling it tomorrow, and then the day after that, and the day after that, and about proving to yourself and to the world that you've earned the right to move up. And the best part, when you lock in a level, you create momentum. You're not carrying the weight of your past progress, you're building on it. Every habit, every discipline, every skill you mastered becomes a tool in your arsenal. You don't start over at each level. You're stacking wins, accumulating momentum. And when you stack enough wins, that's when you become unstoppable. So consider if you've locked in your current level. Have you mastered it? Are you maintaining what you've built, or are you letting it slide while you're trying to rush to the next big thing? Because if you're not locked in, if you haven't mastered that foundation, you're not ready to move forward. Like I've said, life will test you. That's a promise. It'll throw things your way to see if you're really locked in. If you crumble, it's because you skipped a step. But if you've done the work, if you've built the solid foundation and you're maintaining it, you'll rise. Locking in those levels isn't about surviving, it's about thriving. It's about making every level you conquer the new baseline for your life. This is who we are now. Tell yourself that. Every level, this is who we are now. This is who we are now. Don't give it a chance to go backwards. Don't shave things off. Keep loading it up. Last episode, I talked about stress. Bring the stress. You can handle it. I promise. So stop rushing. Stop skipping steps. Lock it in. Master it. And when it's time to move up, you'll know. Because nothing and no one will be able to stop you. So the challenges will change all the time. As you level up, the playing field becomes different. At level 1, it's just you. Your habits, your discipline, your mindset. You're focused on showing up, proving to yourself that you can stay consistent. By level 5, things can shift. Now you're balancing personal growth with responsibility, your career, your relationships, the expectations of others. And then by level 10, you're managing people, working on projects, high-level problems, all with real consequences if you get it wrong. But here's the thing. Every level is designed to prepare you for the next. The struggles you're facing right now aren't setbacks. They're training. They're teaching you. You just don't see it. So don't complain about the difficulty. Don't resent the struggle. Embrace it. Learn from it. Grow through it. And here's the brutal truth. You're going to have to die a few times before you can beat that final boss. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to fail. You're going to think you have it all figured out, only to realize you don't know shit. And that's exactly how you learn. You got to get choked out before you figure out the escape. You got to lose before you understand how to win. You got to get crushed by the weight before you build the strength to lift it. You don't level up just by going through the motions. You level up by playing with intention. You got to load up more weight. You got to take on more responsibility. You got to put yourself in positions where you have to adapt. Because breaking the system and rebuilding it, that's what drives the adaptation required to move forward. I can remember when I first started managing people. Thought I was ready. It wasn't. I thought being a leader was about working hard, making good decisions. But the truth is, leadership is about communication. It's about patience. It's about balancing authority with trust. It's about balancing confidence with humility. And I had none of those skills at first. I had to go back to level 1 and earn them. And now those skills are second nature. But I wouldn't have them if I hadn't respected the process. If I had just gone through the motions, I would have been stuck. If I refused to learn, refused to adapt, I would have been exposed. So here's the takeaway. Stop looking at the next level like it's just going to happen to you. You have to earn your way there. You have to get beat, get broken, and come back stronger. You got to play to win, not just show up. If you're not actively pushing yourself, if you're not willing to break and rebuild, then you're not leveling up. You're just running in circles, stuck at the same checkpoint, waving to everybody as they pass you by. And that's not who you want to be. So step up, take the hit, adapt. That's how you move forward. That's how you really level up. So where does this leave you? And be honest. Are you dominating? You locking it in, proving you're ready for more, or are you stuck? Stop chasing the end result. Stop obsessing over people who are miles ahead of you. Their journey isn't yours. You haven't earned their level yet, and that's okay. But what's not okay is standing still, wishing for something you haven't worked for. So lock in this level, master it, build the habits, the discipline, the resilience that'll carry you forward. Because if you don't, if you try to skip the steps, life has this funny way of exposing you. You'll get choked out. You'll get crushed under the weight. You'll get left behind by those who actually put in the work. And remember this. There are no shortcuts, no hacks, no easy way through. Growth is earned, not given. The next level, it won't open up until you prove you're ready. So step up, own your level, master it. And when the time comes to move up, you won't have to ask for it. You'll know you're ready because you've earned it.